If you have access to a garden, then you've got the most fabulous resource to have lovely homegrown material for Christmas decorations. I'm with Emily Watson from emilytolula.com. Emily's a top florist and she's come here to give me inspiration for my own home, which is fantastic. I first met Emily because we both worked at the Old Bridge Hotel in Huntingdon. Emily does the flowers and I did the gardens. Emily, this is amazing. I mean, if you had a friend, you might have an informal workshop with a friend or two.
Yes.
And then you could bring greenery, pool ideas,
Yes,
and have
exactly.
a great afternoon.
It's a lovely idea to gather different foliage from the garden and something that can be built up with lots of different elements and looks really beautiful when it's finished.
I would never have had inspired to do something like this if you hadn't shown me how to do it. So just to run through what we've done. So you laid some fabric on top of the table.
Yes, so we've got the tablecloth and then we've put the compostable bin bag liner just to protect the tablecloth. And then there's 3 jasmine plants nestled down the middle of the table.
Those are in the black plastic pots?
Yes, they're still in the pots.
Yes. So we'll water those to keep them going?
Yes, and they'll keep going for a good few weeks and they'll open and smell beautiful. And then in between those we've put some hellebore plants. Again, they're still in their pots.
And those you can plant in your garden afterwards, as with the jasmine.
Yes.
And the hellebores, you say, go on flowering all year.
Yeah, there's been little flowers on ours this year that have kept going. So that's been lovely. And then we've sort of nestled some ivy around the pots. So
you had about 5 long strands, very
ivy.
long strands, and you just hid the pots with it.
So wiggled them all around. And then we've started to build it up. So it'll start coming together. So the poles were taken out of the jasmine plants so that they can trail nicely. And then we've got thyme in there, which looks really beautiful for its texture.
Rose hips, we've got lots
hips.
of lovely rose hips from the dog rose, which are amazing, aren't they? And they will hold and look good for a good few weeks, won't they?
They'll keep going.
Dried artichokes we got in there. I love drying the globe artichokes.
Yes, they work quite well if you want to spray them gold as well. They look really pretty.
And then you've got some hydrangeas, dried hydrangeas from the garden.
Yes, so we use those in autumn and then just dried them off. You can hang them upside down or leave them in water as long as until they start to turn, and then they'll just dry off.
And then you've also got some oranges which weren't homegrown.
No, they weren't homegrown.
And they're just baked in the oven, and then you've cut slits in them.
And they will keep going for years on end. So they'll keep
they're lovely. And then I've always been collecting old candlesticks. You bought some too. I get them from eBay and things, and we've just got different types of candlesticks in there.
Yes.
And then we've written with acrylic pens they're special pens for writing on wax, which I got from Hobbycraft. We've written Merry Christmas and decorated them with stars on the candles, which is a nice touch. And I love what you've done with the little candles, the pillar candles they're called, is that right?
Yes,
the fatter candles. And you've just got some double-sided tape, stuck it round the bottom of the candle, and explain what you did with the rosemary.
And then we cut the rosemary about 5-6 centimetres, depending on how tall your pillar candle is, and then we can wrap some velvet ribbon to tie that with. But they're quite scented, and it's just quite a pretty way of adding to the table.
They're lovely. They just really transform them. And then with the apples, I got some russet apples and I sprayed them with edible gold, and so you can just see they've got a bit of sparkle. And then with a leaf, I actually sprayed it with the other gold that's a bit more glittery and just popped it on top for sort of place setting.
That's quite fun.
Yeah, that's a nice idea of yours. And then homemade crackers. I always think you pay a fortune for crackers.
Yes, and you can make them more personal, can't you, by putting different...
Yeah, you can actually put things in them that people want, a pair of earrings or something, and they're just literally tissue paper wrapped round a loo roll holder and a bit of velvet ribbon.
Yes.
And the cracker snap, which you buy for a pence or whatever. So you have really nice personalised crackers, but no hat. I forgot the hats. So that's lovely. I think the whole thing looks amazing. So that was
really special.
The number one thing we started, and hopefully it will go on looking good for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes, and there's just little bits of moss scattered in between, which you can gather from the garden if you've got any on the lawn.
Yeah.
And that just covers any pot that you can see.
And you could obviously ring the changes according to what you've got. And that's what makes it unique, doesn't it?
Pots of rosemary, different herbs would be beautiful. But yeah, you can bring anything in from the garden.
Should we go and show them what we've done in the kitchen?
Yes.
The Brussels sprout bonanza. Come into the kitchen. Brussels sprouts are a bit of a Marmite thing, aren't they? Some people love them and some people hate them, but I think Brussels sprouts are pure Christmas. Now, Emily, you suggested I hung a birch
Yes.
bough up. So I cut down a birch bough from a tree, the one that was actually on the drive that kept hitting lorries, so it was good to go. And then I've draped it over between the two beams.
Yes.
And then you found these amazing trees of Brussels sprouts.
Yes,
I have to say,
really lovely.
then mine in my garden aren't as big as this, and I wanted mine to eat.
Aww.
But I love the way you trailed them along the silver birch bough. And then we've actually we really majored on the Brussels sprouts with the cake. I've got these amazing chocolate Brussels sprouts, which come from Heavenly Chocolates. And they're made in the farm next door to us. She makes amazing homemade chocolates. And she actually makes Brussels sprouts. And she did some that we could thread and hang down from the silver.
Yeah, it's quite fun. You can do it with the children, and then you can make the paper birds if you didn't have a garland.
Yeah, I mean, you could use any twig from the garden, any type
twig.
of tree you like.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you hadn't got beams, you'd spend them from a
Yes.
bit of rope or something.
Yeah, you can
Yes.
do. You can wrap twigs together to make one long twig with a cable ties or wire, and that would work just as well.
And and then we've majored on the Brussels. This is my favourite pottery, this Brussels sprout pottery, and Bronwyn from Marigold and Lettuce makes these, and so she's got these lovely jugs, plates, dishes, everything with the Brussels sprouts on, so it really ups the theme. And then you've put the Brussels sprout with the other brassicas in the vases.
I quite like them. They're quite similar, so that brings a bit of fun to the table and ties in with the tree above.
And then the mince pies, obviously, as well as the Christmas cake. The hellebores, again, I think are wonderful, really nice inside on the table. And the stripy candles, I love.
Really well.
Yeah. Now, I think you've done an amazing job with this. I think it's a brilliant idea. I love the little ribbons. So you've kept very strictly in all the places we've done this to a single sort of quite a restricted colour thing. And I think the gold with the birds and the ribbon and the green of the brassicas.
They really complement each other.
And the bits of white are really nice. You don't need the red poinsettias and everything like that. No.
It looks lovely.
So it's how long will it last? And I think it will probably give us a good 3 weeks, do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the leaves on the Brussels might start to go, but we could just peel those back.
Yeah.
And that should just keep going.
No, that's brilliant. I love it. I really love my kitchen table. Thank you. This, Emily, I think is a triumph. I've never done anything like this before, and you did it so quickly, so simply. So to start with, we got the chicken wire, which you bought a roll of plastic coated chicken wire.
Yes, and that's something that we can keep reusing. So we made a big sausage of the chicken wire.
When you said big sausage, it was about 6 inches diameter, it wasn't 150 mil.
So yes, it's in a circle shape. So you've got something to anchor your stems into. So we made a long sausage,
which we put 3-4 hooks up over the beam.
Yeah,
I put that. That's the bit I did. Yes.
And then we attached the chicken wire sausage onto the beam. And then we used the bracken to start with. So
this is the bracken, and it's everywhere, isn't it? You see it now, and it's just going.
It's a really beautiful colour. So that's the best time to cut it, is when it's gone brown, so that it's not going to just flop.
And then it will stay like this.
And then it will stay and just dry, so that will keep going for a long time. And that's what we made our base with. So.
And when at that stage, when we had just put bracken over the whole thing, I thought it looked pretty stunning, to be honest. It's just so simple.
It's really beautiful, and the colour works really well. So you could spray that gold if you want to have a little bit of sparkle. And that's what we built the first framework with all the bracken. So you sort of weave it in and out, and the stems start to hold themselves in the chicken wire.
And then you brought in the dried hops.
Yes.
Now, in the past, I've actually just cut these from the hedgerows in sort of August, September.
Yes.
And you get these lovely long strands, and I
Yes.
used to put garlands in the beams in the kitchen.
It's really beautiful.
And they lasted 2 or 3 years.
Yes, they do.
But you can spray them with hairspray, can't you?
Yes,
If you
and that'll
want to
stop
keep
them dropping. I
Yeah.
mean, they're fine until you touch them, and then they will sort of shatter. But
Yeah.
for something like this, it works well. So yes, you can buy them fresh in sort of September time, or you can get hold of them most of the year round dried in the garland.
But when I hung them up in the kitchen, they were fresh, and then they just
dry themselves,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And then you put in the little bits of thyme.
Thyme, yes, we've got thyme in there. That just will dry out and stay looking pretty. And then we've got the rose hips as well, and again they'll just dry out. And a little bit of beech.
Yes, and beech is brilliant, isn't it?
It's a good colour.
And that lasts again many years
Yes.
like that,
Yes,
doesn't it?
it will. That's preserved, so you can pop it in some glycerine, and then that will keep going.
Yeah.
And preserve it.
But if you don't want to do that, you can just cut it. It will
Yes, and
last
keep
you
going.
for 4 or 5
Yeah.
weeks, easy.
That's
Yeah.
lovely.
No, and again, you've been really restricted in your palette, haven't you? You haven't got anything bright and
No.
garish. It's just very
Got nothing-
subtle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very gentle colours, but it's actually quite effective.
No, it's a triumph. Thank you
Yeah.
very much indeed.
Awesome.
Now, the final thing we're going to look at now. So, a different take on a Christmas tree. So, here I've got a little pine tree, a pinus species. It's been growing in the garden, so I lift it up, and when I replant it back in the garden after Christmas, I put it in a root control bag so it can feed and water itself through the soil, but no big roots can establish. It just restricts the size of the roots. So I've then potted it into this, or just popped it into this brass container. And then, Emily, you've been at it with your bows again. I think
Yes.
they're lovely.
We've got the velvet bows, and then strung up some chilies, which is quite a lovely touch to it.
I had a bumper year of chilies this year, and so I've just literally, some of them I threaded through with a needle, and some of them I did with paper clips. And then we've got these amazing Christmas pudding truffles. They're lovely. And I've hung some, they did some with hoops on, so I could hang them from the tree, and then we've got some more around the edge. So it's just a very natural,
Sweet. Yes.
sweet Christmas tree from the garden, apart from the ribbons and the chocolates, and it's nice that we can see it again next
Yes.
year. And then
Lovely.
each year I'll prune it in the spring, and then slowly in 10 years' time we'll have a beautiful, perfect Christmas card shaped Christmas tree, the sort of pyramid shape that you want. This is a wee bit lopsided, but who cares? It's
Yeah,
homegrown.
part of the quirkiness.